Okay guys, today it's Prof Scott. What is up, beautiful people? Welcome back on Ichi Luxury. Your girl Rachel Sangara here with yet another entrepreneurship talk. If this is your first time here, please feel free to subscribe. And of course, you're welcome first. You're welcome on my channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and comment, like, click on the notification bell so that you can follow all these series we are working on here. All right, so today's video is going to be about how to generate business ideas. If you watched my last videos last week and the week before, we talked about what is entrepreneurship, what entrepreneurship is not, who's an entrepreneur, and blah, blah, blah. Just go check it out by yourself. And now today is about how to train that creative muscle of yours so that you can be more creative and generate business ideas. It is called Divergent thinking. And you already know who is going to talk about it today. Everybody, Professor Scott. Professor Scott. If you haven't heard about the man, well, just go Google him right now. I mean, I am so excited. He's been my professor for a couple of years, ever since I came to USIU, and now you're gonna discover what he's all about. Scott is one of the most well-rounded lecturers in East Africa, with experience in over 60 countries all over the world, guys. He is a professor, a business coach and trainer. He's a columnist for Business Daily. If you read the papers, then you've read him. Chances are that you have read him already. He's also a consultant. And for his experience, wow, there's so much to talk about. He's been a CEO of microfinance bank, he's been a commercial banker, an NGO director, he's a researcher and an author. Scott is American by birth, English by ethnicity, and Kenyan by choice. Isn't that amazing, guys? So I'm just gonna let you watch for yourself and diving into the video. Make sure that you're practicing directly what he's teaching, because remember what we said, this is not about you learning, it's about you practicing and doing directly. So see you around. All right, guys, we are right here with Professor Scott. Everybody, I get the time to talk about him, and you're gonna hear more from him. He's awesome. And Joshua here.
Hi.
So I'm gonna jump right into the video. And Professor Scott, tell us, in my last video when I talked about what is entrepreneurship, who is an entrepreneur, I talked a lot about pain points, problems, people's frustrations. But I didn't get deep into it, and I would like you to tell us more about it, because people need to understand these things if they want to dive into entrepreneurship.
Sure. I think with entrepreneurs, the first thing you have to do is understand what people suffer from, right? If someone doesn't have a pain point, as I think you've mentioned, they're not going to buy it, right? So, and one of the issues we have in sub-Saharan Africa is the lack of creativity. Across the board, which is a concern. In Africa, we have more of a copycat culture, whereas, hey, our neighbor opened up a butchery, therefore I'm going to open up a butchery. And then you have a whole street of butcheries. And yes, instead of really looking deeply, at what a pain point might be, yes, right? So if you look at someone like me, right, and I'll move this out of the way. I have a gigantic stomach, right? Many years of cultivating all this wonderful fat that's right here. Okay, so if someone like me, who's older and is foreign, here, and I'm overweight, what might be my pain point, right? So a pain point for someone like me might be, maybe my back hurts or my feet hurt, right? So if I am your target market, then you have to come up with a solution for my pain point, right? Instead of you coming up with some product and then convincing me that I have that pain and this will solve it. And that's what most entrepreneurs do, and they try to convince, oh, you need this. No, if you really solve someone's pain point, then it's going to sell itself, yes, right? So for you, what would you solve for someone who's overweight? You'd probably make a certain kind of, maybe a transportation solution, or some kind of shoe, or some pill that gets rid of all of this. Yeah, I mean, obviously. So that's kind of how it works. But then we have this issue with divergent thinking, right? And you and I've talked about that quite a lot over the last few years. If it's the ability to think creatively and think differently and coming up with many solutions to something instead of just the accepted solution, right? So with our Nigerian brother here, or should I try to say that in a Nigerian accent? With our Nigerian brother here. I didn't do it very well, right?
That sucked.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rachel. Right, I'll talk over here. Right, so if I were to ask you, what is the most appropriate use for this bottle, right? The most appropriate use for this, half-filled bottle of water.
Drinking.
Yeah, it's a container for, holding something to drink, right? So that's what society expects, that's what the marketers expect. So that's convergent thinking, right? That's the most acceptable use for something. But what if I were to ask you, take a minute and say out loud, maybe hold the bottle, right? And think of different, different things you could use it for besides just drinking. What else could you use the water for, or the bottle, or the top, right? Any aspect of this. What are different uses for this? Okay, and then Rachel, you're going to count each time he comes up with something. Ready? Begin.
Okay.
And we'll cut you off when you take too much time.
All right.
Begin.
I can say the top can be used in art. Yes.
In art?
Yeah.
For what? For what kind of art?
You can get like different photo covers with different colors.
Right, and then make a collage or
make,
something.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. So that's one.
Yes.
Okay.
Here in Africa, we have people who use the actual plastic bottle to play football, soccer, when there is no.
Exactly. So that's two,
facility.
right?
The water you can mix colors inside this.
Oh, true. You can mix things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm kind of an artist.
Well, that's fine. Those are
yeah.
uses,
So,
right? So that's three. You correct
You
me
can
if I'm
put
wrong.
oils. You can put oils. You can use it to store up other types of liquid.
Right.
that
So
you-
so a store for other liquid. That's
yeah,
four.
apart from water.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. The bottle.
I can tell you something. I'm Congolese, so I would think of a weapon. Why not?
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
Rachel has a
We are in
weapon.
Africa. So let me speak in my Nigerian. We are in Africa. So
Yes.
as a stubborn boy, my mother can just
Now this is the accent I was going for, right? Okay.
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's five so far.
That's five.
Yeah.
Just five. Wow.
Try
Keep
whatever.
going. You got maybe 30 more seconds.
30 seconds. Okay.
You should be thinking about something too. As he's doing this exercise, you should be doing it with whatever you find next to you.
Exactly.
I think that's it. Let's see. The bottle itself can be melted for plastic.
Very good.
Yes,
So that's
yes,
six.
Yes.
Because if you actually didn't hit six, we were going to make fun of you. So it's good you hit the threshold.
At
Okay.
least, at least.
Yes, at least. Any more?
I'm pretty sure there are many more. Many
There are.
more.
I think maybe if you cut it, can you use it for something else?
You can cut it and use it as a pen holder. You can
Right.
put your pens,
A
your
pen
brushes,
holder.
everything.
Also, if you cut it, what else could you use if it's cut?
If you cut it,
What about this way?
you can use it as a funnel.
There you go.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
7.
You could use it as a building block. Right. You could build something with
On
it.
top.
Yes.
And
yeah,
there's
with
a
different bottles.
exactly and there's outside of a Tuscus in Numuthaiga, the sign is actually made out of these plastics. It's really interesting, right? So there's many different ways you can come up with and many uses for this object. But what you have in your brain is what's going on. You have this functional fixedness, right? So you're very set on it's for drinking. Why would I think of something else? So you came up with a few artistic things, but you didn't come up with a lot. And if we do this exercise with like for instance, with a marker pen, like a whiteboard marker, you get 12, the international average for the number of uses for a whiteboard marker is 12 for the first time. And actually for a bottle of water, it's even more. Okay?
How much?
It ranges per country, right? So you get 14, 15, depending on where.
So people actually are creative depending to which country they're from?
Right. The culture that they grow up in leads
And
to,
the uses.
different ways of thinking, right? Which is a whole huge discussion. Maybe another video on
Yes.
where this comes from. So, but in Africa, usually our whole education system would be about what's the most appropriate use for this water. right? Or sorry, for the bottle and the water and so forth, not what can you do with it and what else, and you know, so we don't have more divergent thinking. And even if you go up country here in Kenya, you go up to your shags, you go up to where you're from and you see your grandmother, you know, and she's doing some kind of agricultural technique that's not right. Would you stop her and say, you know, Shosho, what are you doing? You're not doing it right. No, of course, we would keep quiet and respect her and not challenge her. So our entire culture is all about this, you know, and what's right, and stick to what's right. And other cultures historically have this same problem, like China, like in China, the Chinese, you know, very respectful, very, you know, stay conservative. Right, but some countries can be conservative, but also creative, like parts of America, right? But yeah, coming up with different options. So you came up with 6, right? For the whiteboard marker, for doing this the first time, it's 6 is the average for Kenya, okay? And for this, for a bottle the first time, it's 7 in Kenya. Right? So that's why I was saying, if you don't hit 6, we're really going to harass you as having a Nigerian problem or something. My accent, I can't do it. I try.
You're trying.
I'm trying, yeah.
It's general African accent, not exactly Nigerian.
I've lived here, 18 years, and I still can't get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a challenge. So how do you get over this? How do you start thinking more creatively? And why does it matter? And because in entrepreneurship, a lot of research shows that the biggest determinant of success in entrepreneurship is the ability to look around you and see patterns. And then think of what the problems are, but also the solution to those problems, and the ability to see those patterns and come up with solutions. And that's why in all of our entrepreneurship curriculum now, and this is fairly new research, we do this in all our classes now. So you start off in entrepreneurship and we start giving you pens and bottles and you have to come up with uses, and some people think I'm on crack or something stupid, like, why are you doing this, right? So if you do this every day for 7 days, and you go home, you close your eyes, you open your eyes, the first thing you see, right? Like the first thing I see here is an exit sign, right? So I would think of, give myself maybe 3 minutes and write down as many uses I could come up with for that exit sign as possible. Right? And you'll see in just 7 days, your brain will start to rework some patterns, and you'll start to retrain your brain. And then you continue, and you do that for a full month. When you go around Nairobi, instead of just complaining about issues, where's the drainage? Oh, what about this? You'll come up with interesting ways and solutions to solve it. Now apply that in your business. Okay?
Yes. Last time you talked about China, how Chinese people started to exercise more around this, and they started filing for more patents and copyright,
exactly.
and because they started becoming more creative.
Right.
So research actually backed this up. It works.
Right, like in China, like on a national level, right? The Chinese for hundreds of years, they were a meritocracy. Right? Whereas in the European context, it was more of an aristocracy, which is a different problem, right? Your father was important, so therefore you're important. In China, they would take, for hundreds of years, you would take a test, and if you were very good on that test, you would become a bureaucrat, and a very high-serving bureaucrat. So people would try really hard to learn what does the government, or what does the rulers, back then it was an emperor, what do they want us to think so we can pass the test? And that was the determinant of success in that society. Right, and then now, in recent times, in the past few decades, China is trying to intentionally have their students become more creative, right? But with that creativity is starting to have some social tension, right? And China doesn't tolerate social tension, right? They want cohesion, they want harmony. So now the government's trying to give people a social rating, and that has been all over the news for a few weeks. And then judging you, oh, you're too creative, that you'll be punished probably. These kind of things. So whereas in America, especially in California, where a lot of these inventions come from, they champion creativity, and the most creative people from Africa, from India, from Asia. They go to California, and then they thrive in an environment with other creatives like them. So maybe you'd thrive more there if you can name more than 6, But not this, next time pick a different object.
Anything,
right?
Anything you find.
Absolutely,
just keep trying. Just keep
trying.
And train the muscle of creativity, and that's how you...
Completely.
Exactly.
You got it.
And how about Africa? Do we have that? Is it coming now? What would you say about
creativity in Africa?
Yes,
right, creativity in Africa. Creativity, it's not a genetic barrier, right? It's a learned behavior, it's a culture behavior, right? So if you did this activity when you were younger, right? Like 4 years, 6 years old,
Yes.
if your parents did this with you, you'd see exponential results. You might become a Steve Jobs type, okay? But sorry, you're older now. You know, not as old as me, of course. I'm like 3 times your age. Okay, so but at least you can still improve dramatically by doing these type of activities, right? So you see areas of innovation starting to pop up, right? You see in Lagos, or how would you, Lagos, or I don't know how you would
Lagos.
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 Lagos State.
Mzungu Mjinga, I can't say it properly. You know, so yeah, so you know, and in Accra, you see in Johannesburg, and in Nairobi, you see these centers of innovation, right? And of course, our claim to fame, of course, here in Nairobi, being the Silicon Savannah, you know, this IT hub. We are the epicenter for financial technology in the world. So there are some things coming up, but there's not enough. And if you go through the public education system in Kenya, you're probably not going to get this. You know, studies in Kenya show over half the time teachers in public schools in Kenya spend their time trying to discipline and control the children instead of teach. I mean, that's a massive amount of wasted time. So unfortunately, it's the more wealthy citizens who have access to private schools that are getting this creativity, which is really sad, and so forth. And you see the wealth gap even greater in Nigeria, right, or in Congo. So.
All right. I hope you got whatever we're trying to do here. In case you got a little lost, Professor Scott was trying to get you to work on your creativity muscle. Okay? So the exercise today is you close your eyes, as you said, you open it, whatever you see, you think of as many uses as possible of that thing beside what you know it does, beside what everybody knows it does, okay? And so thank you for staying with us till the end. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, subscribe. Click on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the episodes. We're gonna have Professor Scott again for the next session, and I hope you enjoy this. Interact, let us know your feelings, let us know what you think, let us know if the exercise was helpful for you, and share with your friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you.